right, Wolf Bear Records is here with John Dante and the Inferno. How are you doing today?
I am great. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. So tell me a little bit about your band.
So, Inferno, believe it or not, we had our first show New Year's Eve of '08. We started out as like a blues rock and roll band. We were playing house parties and bar parties and things like that. And I spent some time in Hollywood in 2012 and did some recording work out there and some studio stuff. Came back after that to Ohio and reformed the group. Started putting out CDs and recording, and we've pretty much been going on since then. Rocking and rolling. It's been about a dozen years strong. We just did our last recording live 2020 with you, and there's been a lot of in between. I guess since we started off as a blues band till now. So that's I guess that's the basics of it. We started off, rocking and rolling, and they're still trucking. So, while we're located in Ohio currently, that's our home base. But we like to tour around as much as possible originally, and we like to do live streams and play shows online. So we got that going, and yeah, we got to play in a couple other states this year. So we're sort of starting to break out of our little circle, and we like rock and roll. We like good having a good time and playing fun music. So that's what it's been about. Band sort of evolved through different stages of blues, rock and roll, and psychedelic, and still evolving, still making music. And I guess you'd have to listen to it, I guess, from there on out.
So you used to play with the blues, play blues music?
Yeah, I still do sometimes, but that's sort of where we got the basis of what we were doing, was doing like blues and rock and roll covers. And I think a lot of rock bands start out that way. So yeah, that's sort of where the basis of it was. And then more original music now. Sometimes we'll still do cover songs and stuff, and sometimes we'll still play blues. I know earlier this year I was playing a little bit of slide guitar when we were doing some of our live streams, and we were doing Stop Breaking Down, the Robert Johnson tune. So that was in our set list when we very first started doing our live streams. So yeah, we still keep it alive.
So how did you get the Inferno? How did you come up with that?
We were going through band names, and since we were doing a blues rock and roll sort of thing, I wanted to do something kind of catchy and old school, with the and we were first coming up with the very first iteration of the band name. I think I called it Johnny Rocket and the Satellites because it was funny. And that's how I was sort of like, oh yeah, Johnny Rocket and the Satellites. It's kind of this blues 1950s kind of, the Tomorrowland at Disney sort of vibe. And I think we did our first demo, and I maybe sort of kind of kicked the idea around, and it was just a little bit campy. And we might have booked a few shows and looked at it on the flyers, and it was, I don't know. And then, John Dante is my real name, so I was like, the Inferno, we could make that work. And I kind of did it because I remember I read the book, Dante's Inferno, in college, and it's a cool book, like a political and religious satire, and kind of a horror and a comedy and an epic, all in one. It's all sort of wrapped together. And I thought those were all elements that I wanted to bring to the band, different, social commentary and just some political satire and, the tongue in cheekness and the horror and the comedy and the epicness of it. So I thought it fit. And over the years, we've gone through a lot of different band members, a lot of different styles. And if I changed the band name with every with every album or with every band, it would be hard to keep up. So I've kept it for the past 12 years, and we keep on trucking. People seem to remember.
Awesome. So it's only been, is it just the two of you?
Right now, yeah, that's how we've been running it. The COVID was definitely interesting. The way that shook everything up. People were worried about booking bands in general. They were worried about social distancing and how many people they're going to be in clubs, and different people were quarantined in different areas. And I looked up a lot of different groups that did the two-piece thing, and one of my favorites was Ween. They're one of my favorite bands, and they did a lot of recording and performing. The drum machine is like a two-piece performance, and I liked it. I think it's cool, and we've been grooving on it, and we've been a lot of fun with it. The band actually started out that way. It just has taken time, but we originally, it was the two of us, and we got a drum machine, and we tried to program the songs, but it didn't work. So then we were using acoustic guitars, and that's sort of where the blues element came in. And we've had a lot of drummers over the years, and I sort of laugh when I go back, to using a drum machine, programming things that way, and working the band is a two-piece, because that's sort of what it's always been as far as songwriting goes. We are really two pieces songwriters, and the performance aspect has been really cool. I know we sort of talked to people about, the possibility of having a live or a full band, but it's not really possible to reverse that right now. That's sort of the issue, is that you can't have five people over. And I've sort of been getting into it. So it's been working out really well, and people been liking it, and it's been different, which is sort of exciting. I definitely am looking into having some people come in when we do that, maybe especially vocalists. I know that I've seen a lot of groups have guest vocalists come in, and we did try that out a little bit on the last record, and I don't know. There's a couple of people that I know singing, so maybe we can get some, more people back into the mix. But yeah, it sort of tightened down over the last year to, the core of the group.
Now, is you being in a band, is that something you always want to do since a little kid?
I think so. For most of the time that I can remember. I did acting for a while. I had the theater thing. I guess I always like being on stage. It must be my personality. Always like performing. Maybe I like the energy of it. I don't know if how much the attention. Um, but I did always want to be in a band, and I sort of, you vision things differently when you read a lot of bands, especially when I was young in middle school. Bands in the '90s, they would sort of buy them, and they would live in California, and then they would like drive to Seattle, and that's sort of how a lot of bands did it. And they would have a band house, and and so there's a lot of things. I always wanted to be, I think, part of a group, if that makes sense. But ended up starting my own group and then bringing people into having people come and go. So it sort of played out a little bit differently, because I always figured, I'd be part of a group, and then, starting my own thing and trying to bring people in and creating my own circus out of the experience. But I always like playing music. I always like performing. And I think music is just the truest form of performance. You can really be yourself when you're making music and performing. I think that's probably what drew me to it the most. And I think the more I go along and do it, the more, I enjoy being able to like orchestrate the elements myself, or produce more of it myself, if that makes sense. So it sort of makes sense, I guess, the evolution of things, going from working with different groups of people to maybe, orchestrating things on my own. And then you go, there's always opportunity for new things. But yeah, it was something that I always wanted to pursue.
Well, that's pretty cool. So, how's obviously COVID's affecting you. You can't. Is it stopping you from getting gigs?
Hasn't been super terrible for us. I had a good time because we were at campgrounds were still allowed to stay open. So a lot of the major festivals and venues that usually draw a lot of people during the summer weren't allowed to, they weren't able to operate. So there was definitely an underground scene that was more available that sort of popped up. There's definitely been gigs out there, and we've been live streams, and people like to see the live streams. The live music video, and people like to see that. And then we played pretty much every weekend of the summer. We did a lot of different gigs, which was really exciting. I don't know if I still have the set lists. I had like a whole pack of all the different set lists from all the different gigs we did, and I wanted to go through it because I thought it was pretty cool. But stuff like that, it just mixed into the studio over time, and then I never know where exactly it went to. But no, I have all the different gigs written down and listed. Um, we did about a dozen this summer. I mean, we did a lot of. It was probably one of the more successful summers, believe it or not, and it sort of surprised a lot of people because I know a lot of people sort of dropped off. We had plans though, so we ended up still being productive and still finding ways to work, but it was different than what I originally thought was going to happen. Because I wanted to travel a little bit more, but there's not quite as much traveling on. Yeah, so different, but we'll see how things happen next year. Because I think the plan originally for this year was to, find more people to open for, more tours that were national acts that we're gonna, that we'd be able to open for, so that we'd be able to get into larger venues, and also traveling a little bit, maybe finding a small circuit and sort of expanding, or doing, weekend shows like back where you're able to do, one show and then another sort of a couple hundred miles away. So that was sort of the original plans to get a couple of touring acts that were coming through to the area that was close to me, and sort of jump into a couple of shows and then branch out and do some things out of state. And that's totally impossible with the way things turned out. So it was a major bummer, because I did not have things planned, and I went out of town because I want to take my mind off of things. And that's when I sort of booked all these shows. I started seeing stuff pop up, people that wanted to do entertainment, were able to do entertainment, and I sort of my name in the hat for a lot of those. And most of the events that I contacted were like, "Oh, we'd be happy to have you," and that was a pleasant surprise that almost everybody I contacted, was someone that had worked with the band or seen the band and was, wanted to have us a part of their event. So I'm hoping we did good in 2020, and I'm hoping, all the people that watch this and booked are down to have us back again. And it was definitely a party. It was a blur of a year, to be honest. Because jumped into a lot of stuff. A lot of bands would pull out of because of COVID. Bands would, schedule a show and then go, or a lot of shows would get rescheduled. They'd be in a venue and then they have to pull, and do a smaller show or a different show. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. And there's a lot of bands that did want to play. They wanted to hold off. And there was a lot of people that were going stir crazy. And so we just ended up won a couple really like last minute gigs out of it too, because we would have stuff cancel on us, and we'd be like, "Oh no, we have a cancellation," and so then you like get on the phone and you'd see who else had cancellations. Things were changing week to week. So sometimes you'd be like, "Oh, we don't have a show this weekend," and on Wednesday you'd get on the phone and you'd be like in the car Friday, and you'd be out all weekend somewhere because something would pop up, and then they weren't allowed to have large events. So a lot of this stuff wasn't being promoted super far in advance. But we played every weekend this summer from like, early July after the 4th of July all the way through September. We were pretty solid.
That's awesome.
And a couple of shows here and there, yeah, and then things shut down again. And so that's it. That's the live video 2020 live. We don't have any live shows scheduled, so people who want to band or didn't get to see the band, who are about quarantine or who were too quarantined to make it, they still experience it this year.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully 2021 is a heck of a lot better year.
I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder what's going to happen. That's what I can say. I mean, the major tours still aren't coming back. The big stuff, the arenas and like all the bands that had to cancel their stadium and arena tours for 2020. I don't think they've rescheduled for 2021 yet. So I'm thinking it might be more of the same. It might be a lot more like underground festivals. I don't know if a lot of larger venues want to take the risk of setting up a big concert and then getting the infrastructure for 10, 15, 25,000 people and then having to pull the plug on that many people last minute. It's way easier to do that, with 250 people, in a small area is, to do that, in a venue that operates at full capacity. So I think most venues, around here, like medium-sized venues of 2,500, 1,500 to 2,500 people is our like music hall. And then I think our stadium in Youngstown's like 35 to 4,500. And, nothing of that size is coming back. So we're looking at, still probably still a strange landscape next year if I was going to predict it, which I want things to be different, but I don't know. I don't know what's going to I guess I haven't been playing things lately.
So, who are some of your influences? What got you started into music?
What got me first started? Classic rock stuff. Very first off, like loved AC/DC, and probably the first rock band I ever really got into, and then I got into all of them. Led Zeppelin, Van Halen, and you kind of go through that, and then when I was kind of got through that phase, you get through like Guns N' Roses, and then there's grunge. So you absorb all that music, and then you find stuff like Primus, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Ween is another one of my favorite bands. Coheed and Cambria was always a lot of fun. Progressive rock bands like Tool, Clutch was always they're a cool band. Kind of got into them late. Earth Rocker, and sort of later in their career for people that are Clutch fans. But a lot of people were like, "Hey, we like your music. You might be into this band called Clutch." And I was like, "Oh, I really like what they're doing." So that influenced me. As like going. And Tool, I see them live as much as I can because their stage is always astounding. Primus and Les Claypool's one of my favorites. I see pretty much every Les Claypool show I can go to because they're going to be fun, and
Oh,
it's usually bands like that that really keep things forward, that get me most excited nowadays. Frank Zappa is someone that I like to go back to because sometimes people say you remind me of Frank Zappa, and I'm like, how? He's like the best composer ever. He's a fucking madman, like genius. But I'm like, oh, it's fun, and that's why. I like Buckethead. So that's a lot of influences, I guess, and I keep moving it forward and keep, I guess, I progressively try and influence myself. For this last album, I've been listening to weird stuff like ambient, Japanese, noise rock, and what else were we listening to? Like Inuit throat singing from up there in Alaska. That was definitely bizarre. Different ambient rock music, electronic stuff. Prince just passed away, and so his music's been coming out there more. Different things all the time. I'm like, what's interests you? What are you into? And so we're trying to find a new direction all the time. And so that's been a never-ending process. Find bands to influence us.
so are you working on your next album or?
Getting it now. I'm getting the studio built, trying to put together. Definitely working on an album. I'm definitely getting it written currently.
That's awesome. All right, so where can people find your stuff at?
Go to www.johndanteandtheinferno.com. We're going to have a new website launching at the beginning of the year. So our new album, Live 2020, all of our albums, including Lies and Truth, our latest new Inferno Productions releases that we recorded right here in the Inferno Production Studios. You can find them where music is streamed or sold or downloaded. Listen to it for free on YouTube. If you just want to type it in, all the albums there. You can listen to it for free on Spotify. We're always submitting to Pandora. I don't know if it comes up. And also you download it anywhere that you download or stream music, whatever app you have, Amazon, Google Play, search John Dante and the Inferno, and you can download us from any one of those spots. You can support the website, support us on Instagram or Facebook. So everywhere music is enjoyed, we're going to be a part of it.
All right, man. Well, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having us. Rock and roll. Thank you again for this year's Live 2020. I don't know if I've talked about that enough. It's a great project. Really glad to partner with you on that. Go listen to that. And if you guys haven't heard the band yet, Live 2020, Wolf Bear Records and Inferno Productions at Nexus Sound Studio with Snappy Sammy Photography. It was the whole crew. Super proud of that multimedia production. Super excited that we were able to do that. And that's my favorite thing that I've done so far this year. So I want to talk about that as much as possible. We'll get back there. Thank you very much for having us on. We'll be back soon.
All right, thank you.
All right, everybody. I am John Dante. This is the Inferno, and this first song is called Trash. Just a trash pile, baby. Such a dumpster queen. What you gotta make me see? You ain't even gotta lie to me. Just a trash can, baby. Something everybody needs. Seriously, it ain't been nothing to me. I picked you up like litter off the street. Sometimes life can be mean, baby, ain't that rough? Sometimes for the girl it just ain't hard enough. Ain't life tough? It's trash. It's just trash, baby. It's just trash. Can be such a treasure. Baby, it'd be my pleasure to pick you up from the dump. Trash, but I could never throw you out. You make me wanna scream and shout. Show me what you're all about. Every morning I wonder, will you stay? Every 2 weeks or so, a trash man comes and takes you away. It's trash. It's just trash, baby. It's just trash. Stuck underneath of my shoes, feeling spit out and chewed. Like an old piece of gum. You wanna come, baby? Trash, honey. But you stick to me like glue. What am I supposed to do? So lucky that I stepped in you. Sitting in a pile of garbage, said you don't belong. Well, that's just the way it would be if you're acting too strong. Why can't we all just get along? It's trash. It's trash, baby. It's just trash. And I ain't your type of fool, girl. You ain't been acting too cool, girl. Garbage said it ain't where you belong.